Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Richmond Water and Sewer Commission, October the 7th, 2024. Are any public comments?
I would like to make a brief one.
Okay,
I had the opportunity to attend the Vermont League of Cities and Towns Town Fair, which is basically another name for the annual conference, last week. And we had a celebrity guest, Jim Cantori, speaking to us. And it wasn't a laugh a riot speech about all the fun places he's gone to report on weather. It was a very hard, matter-of-fact speech about weather trends and graphs and charts, and he made it very, very clear that what we've seen in terms of flooding is nothing compared to what's coming down the road. We have to basically expect every year 2 or 3 events like what we've been having.
Yep.
And Josh and I were talking briefly before the meeting. There is no magic bullet for paying for all that. I don't know how we're going to pay for everything that's going to need to be done over the next few years.
well, nobody does, really, unfortunately. So it's like a second hurricane coming into Florida.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And my daughter just texted me, she's just self-attended, so
Oh, no.
mandatory evacuation, but they still haven't had gas in the gas stations. And I mean, she's got like enough to go 300 miles, and I'm like, go as far as you can and hope you find a gas station.
Well, if you can eliminate the storm surge, then you're way ahead.
But the entire
She
state
had-
is 20 feet. You know, it's not,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of high spots.
Yeah,
Anyhow.
Florida, yeah, 20 feet is like.
The mountains. Yeah.
Top of most places,
A lot
but
of rain.
no, I think, I mean. His statement, I think, is true. We've seen it. And I mean, I think we need to, and we already are, is trying to manage and fix things in a way that we can at least survive through storms like this.
Mhm.
Without having to, break the budgets.
Right.
It is what it is. I mean,
All
I
right.
think it is the new future.
It is.
Any other comments? Okay, additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
None.
Add, change, okay. And first up, approval of minutes from our September 16th, 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of September 16th, 2024.
The second.
I'll second that.
Right. Discussion.
I was just going to note, apparently I said absolutely nothing during the entire meeting. I was looking at the minutes going,
Is that
Wait a
awesome?
minute.
Is that awesome?
There must be something wrong.
Were you here?
I was here, I know I commented, but people who took part in discussion, you can search for the entire thing and only a couple motions say for, I'm like, I guess I was just quiet that night.
Maybe your mic wasn't on.
Probably for the best.
A model that helps to
It doesn't recognize Jay.
okay, no further discussion. Calling for a vote to approve the minutes from September the 16th, is that right?
Yep.
Bart, aye.
J.I.
Morgan, I. Motion passed. All right, next up, purchase order. Anybody like to-
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve purchase order 4909 in the amount of $23,706.30 for pump station repairs.
I would like to second that motion.
Okay, discussion?
So this is for the pump station. It is all back in working order, new air compressors, new motors. It's been all rewired that needed to be fixed, everything. It's done. When we're all done, we're still waiting for the 2 motors that got wet. We sent them out and had the price of that is included in this. And I haven't been able to get a hold of Phil, but I believe the price of rebuilding the second air compressor that was waterlogged is in here too. But I have to double check with him. So basically what that gives us is 2 air compressors and 2 motors to go back in if it happens again, instant. I mean, as soon as I call Phil and say, look, we need to replace them, we have the stuff already, ready to go.
Good, Mark.
Does Phil have a succession plan?
Thank you very much.
He is beginning to, this flooding events are, I mean, he has enough business just doing his normal stuff. Put on top of it, being involved in rebuilding plants like Johnson and, Ludlow and stuff like that, that comes along. I mean, I don't know how he does it with 3 guys and, you know. He called me and he's like, I've got all the parts that did you get all the parts you needed? And I'm like, I've got what I told you I'd get. He's like, we'll be down. I spent a day and a half, you know, redoing bolt pumps and getting everything in new. They really, when they're here, they're working it,
Yeah.
but it is, no, there is, you know, Phil is, yeah, I mean, everybody, he's in demand, everybody wants him, so I feel honored when we get him.
Yeah.
We did have to wait a little while this time, but it's different if we have all the materials ready to go,
Sure.
and that's where I wanna be next time. While we're talking about that, well, I guess we'll bring it up later
Yeah.
about
Be more
pump
discussion.
station stuff, but yeah.
But I just a quick, so having everything here as far as pumps, you know, compressors, things like that. I would assume that that's not something that if there's a flood, that we can replace those with in-house.
It's not really something, I mean, technically we could if we had a crane, you know, but you need a crane to put those things 14 feet in the ground.
How much is a crane?
Yes.
Huh?
How much is a crane?
A lot,
I think,
6 figures,
huh?
6 figures?
Yeah.
I kind of figured, I was just wondering.
And it's the know-how of making sure everything goes together.
Lines
I
up.
mean, they do this every day.
Right.
That's not to be said that we wouldn't maybe take stuff apart and have it all ready to come out when he shows up. Down in the hole where he just, I would have to drop the stuff down and, you know, make things faster, but, not having the part waiting, I mean, we waited almost 6 weeks for an air compressors to get here. Phil got the motors pretty quick, but he got the motors because I called him the day of the flood. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna need these motors all over. And they were there, ready to go. I mean, the motors were here almost instantly, but we don't have to order them.
Good.
Good. Jay, we probably wouldn't need to share that, I just realized.
Oh, no big deal.
Are we sure?
No.
Oh, well, yeah.
We've all got these, if they work.
They just don't
rearrange,
recombobulated,
Want to?
Lisa, I think if you keep that close to you, that's probably,
Yeah, and then maybe
I've
Bart.
heard sometimes
maybe
you
Bart-
aren't picked up so well, so I think put that one.
Oh, yeah, there,
This will work.
Yeah,
we're good now.
because I think sometimes you sit back and
Yeah.
then they don't always hear you, so I think
Yeah.
if you keep that one near, so
Speak.
if you keep that one close to you for the next 6 hours, that'd be awesome.
My armpit.
Okay.
6 hours, you're being optimistic.
My estimates were a little low, and I mean, it is the price of things nowadays.
And we'll get to that.
We'll get to that in a
Yeah,
bit.
so
So,
we probably just stick on warrants purchase orders.
yeah, so we need to vote. Is that correct? Or we-
No, you didn't vote yet.
Okay, so motion be calling for a vote to approve purchase order 4909 for 23,706.30.
Did I miss too much of the discussion or?
There wasn't a lot.
Okay.
It's a purchase order to repair the pump station.
This is That's for Phil Laramie's when they came in. It was the pumps and the blowers.
Well, it's when I talk about our pump station, it's a pneumatic pump station, so the air compressors essentially are what's doing the pumping. They're pushing the sewage across the river, across the bridge.
Okay, good. Call in for a vote.
Lisa, I?
Bard, I.
Jay, I.
Morgan, aye. Motion passes. Okay. Next up, warrants. We have one electronic warrant report and 3 check warrant reports.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the warrants as presented.
This is Lisa, I'll second.
Okay, Lisa seconds. Discussion. Warrants, and I think embedded in this is this purchase order cost. It's,
Yeah, the invoice that goes with that purchase order, which is why it's good to do purchase orders first and
Yep.
then the warrants.
So this is purchase warrant number 22396. And then there's a big one for $102.30.
Which one was that? Sorry. Oh, $102. Sorry, I thought 102,000. Wait, what?
No.
Like, I thought I would remember that.
See that one?
$102. Yeah, what was that? That was the last year's purchase order, I think. Was that FY 24?
Yeah.
Invoice.
Yeah.
So that was,
Atlanta Rubber.
yeah, you bought some
Yeah,
seals or something.
When I
No.
ordered stuff from them,
You know,
I
this-
cleaned up and I made I made sure that all the emails and the invoices come to me. And for some reason, that one went to Aaron. His old email account, which none of us have access to. And it was addressed to me, but went to his email.
Right.
Anyway,
At least you
It
found
just-
it.
They found us anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was $102.
No further discussion, calling for a vote for approval of the warrants.
Lisa, I?
Bard, I.
Jay, I.
Morgan, aye. Motion's passed. And the warrants. All right. So presentation discussion. First up, update on Hoyle Tanner on wastewater treatment facility planning project. Josh, you want to lead here?
Sure. So, yeah, I invited John Olin from Hoyle Tanner to join us this evening. Kirsten, who also has been helping out, isn't available tonight, but I met with both of them a couple weeks ago because I wanted to make sure that we were sort of up to speed on all the various projects, and John can provide an update, but basically we've got the 20-year study and then the related facility upgrade, which we have to talk about a bond vote for. There's a separate project for the Bridge Street Pump Station in Forest, Maine to flood-proof that. And then there's the influent pump replacement. So I found it really helpful to sit down with John and Kirsten to kind of go over all of those, look at timelines. And I thought it would be good to keep the commission kind of up to speed in all those because I was losing a little track of what was where. So it's helpful to kind of check back in. So John, I can share that document that you provided if that would be helpful to walk through.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to put that on screen. And sorry, everybody, I meant to be there in person today. Just was feeling a bit under the weather and thought I'd keep my germs away from you all here remotely. So if you got, even if you don't have it up, oh, here it's coming in now. So, all right. So before we get into, just kind of some terminology, some of you, or maybe all of you are all familiar with the CWSRF program. When I talk in terms of step 1, that's regarding engineering planning. Step 2 is engineering final design. Step 3 is construction and construction oversight services. And these are all individual loans within the program. So some of those early loans, the step 1 and step 2, those are 0% interest. And then the step 3 loan, which is usually the biggest one, is at 2% interest. That's the one that pays for the larger dollar figure of the construction value of the project. So we'll start just kind of walking through, and if anybody wants to jump in, go ahead and step in, and we can answer questions as we go, or I'll get to the end and we'll just kind of circle back and talk about all 3 projects together. So with the Richmond Wastewater Treatment Facility, we completed the PER in January of 2024. That And that was with the CWSRF loan, the original 20-year study there on line IA of 154,000. Thank you, Josh. That's good. And then those letters right below, B, C, D, and E, that's the current open phases of services that Hoyle Tanner has with the town to complete. We added those on earlier this summer, funding assistance, sewer use ordinance review, public outreach, and grant application assistance. This is all really in the preparation for the bond vote, and making sure that the payback terms are understood and that we can be very clear with the voters as to what the project is, and hopefully get a successful bond vote when we do move forward. At the same time, these are not to exceed figures. So if we're going to help out with the town regarding CWSRF program or other potential grants that we may want to pursue, that's what those services are for. And that's that grand total up above of $235,000. And now the next steps, which will include step 2 final design and step 3 construction, are approximated at about $16.7 million. One thing I don't have shown here too, Josh, that I thought about today was we submitted the CDS grant for $2.5 million that we're waiting to hear back on. We should hear back, let's say like next June timeframe, as to hopefully being successfully awarded that grant, which would offset some of those construction costs. Regarding the schedule, so this is ongoing. As I mentioned before, we're working on the sewer use ordinance, hoping to have that complete by around November of 2024. And we're at this kind of point where we want to talk through with you all and think about when the right time frame would be for the bond vote. We could try to advance a bond vote in March of 2025 prior to starting those final design services. That would be required to hang on to a little more contingency and costs. One of the things that we do as we go through design is we continuously check with the vendors on current pricing for equipment, and we update the project costs as we go. So when you get to the end of the 30% design, that's where you have a little more certainty into what the project costs will be. And as you keep progressing 60% into 90% of the final design, you get further and further along in that process. So we wanted to point out with Josh and with you all the option to either maybe even hold on the bond vote until November of 2025 or March of 2026, where you would have more accuracy in the total project costs. And as Steve mentioned before, and you know what we're seeing in the industry, there's been a very sharp increase due to inflation and escalation, and the BABA requirements. So Buy America, Build America, regarding those materials and equipment suppliers trying to find ways to make sure that they're in compliance with those regulations. It's added costs into the project. Some equipment we're seeing at about 40% increase in cost, which on a $600,000 blower or something like that, that's pretty significant in the grand total of a large project like this. So we want to make sure when we think about those options, and you don't have to make a decision on that tonight. That's just something we're looking at in the overall schedule, where the best point would be for the town to go out to the voters for a bond vote, and what dollar value we hold in there. Below that, then in April of 2025 is where we really have the final design, step 2 starting. That's strategic with some of the things that we're doing right now, assessing both the pump station, going through the sewer use ordinance review, and preparing for public outreach. So we intentionally want to start in August or in April of 2025 with that phase of design. And that would begin with doing the field investigation services like wetlands delineation, survey, topographical survey, soil borings, and things that we need to collect on site in order to continue on with that design. So I crossed out a couple on my list, but you've got it up there. January 2026, that's 30% design completion. We put that in there to help think about where that bond vote might fall. So if we're scheduled right now for completing that, that's when you'd have greater accuracy in costs. But by November of 2024, we're doing pretty well. It's about what we need to put in the warrant article and when we need to post it. October or September might be a little early for getting that greater accuracy at 30%. So that's why we said maybe March of 2026. Then we're looking to finish up final design in August of 2026, go to bid phase through that fall, have a contractor selected, and then construct in the years 27 and 28. All of this is, for any public in the room, any participants who are interested and excited to see the project get going. It is subject to change, depending on how the project advances with funding agencies and with what's right for the town. And so I don't want to have everybody thinking, yes, on April 2027, you're going to be breaking ground. Hopefully we will be. And right now it appears as if that we're on track for that, but don't get too tied to the dates yet. So we'll scroll down, and unless anybody wants to stop there and talk about the treatment facility, we'll come back around to it.
Steve's got
Can
a
I ask a
question.
question, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it is my understanding that we have the ability to change anything in the design up until the final design. Does that mean August of 2026? We can still take parts out or add different?
As long as it's within the bonded amount. Now, you could always go back out for a bond vote too, if you found that but it's difficult and it's costly to go for a bond vote. So you try to do it one time on a project, so you get your
Right,
dollar
but
figure.
I thought you said we probably wouldn't be looking for a bond vote until March of 2025.
Or 26.
Yes. Wait, so maybe I'm misunderstanding. So, but if you get your bond vote in, let's say for $16.7 million project in March of 2025, and as we're going through the design with you, Steve, and you say, you know what, I really need this equipment has now changed. It's gone from being acceptable to no longer usable, and we got to replace it as part of this project. If that were to get added in and it becomes a $18 million project, then we need to, if the project value increases above the bonded amount, you have to go back out for another bond vote or take something else out of the project to get it back within the dollar figure that the public approves. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around when we can basically stop making decisions about what we have to do. I mean, 16 million is a lot of money, and I really want to make sure we're doing all the right things and want to know when we need to be at what point.
You're spot on, and going through this with other communities, working with the chief operator and the design team, the design essentially, it flushes things out. You do come to some realization of this is the best value, this is the best investment long term for the public good. And so that design process up to August of 2026, when you complete it, there will be changes. I definitely can see that happening, Steve, as long as the way we write the bond article is sufficient to allow for flexibility, but still within the guidance that the public is voting on.
Lord? So, my inclination based on the conversation here to this point is to think about a March 2026 bond vote, but that's all founded on the assumption that between now and then, there's other, as you describe it here, public outreach.
Mhm.
As recently as a week or two ago, in one of the chats, in one of our meetings, somebody was saying, well, I pay for the water sewer system that I don't use, which is I think, fundamental misunderstanding of who pays for it.
Mhm.
And my point of that is, I think we could start public outreach sooner rather than later that talks about the need for this, a couple of talking points. Why do we have to do this, and who's going to pay for it, separate from who it gets to vote on it based on the fiduciary authority of the town versus the water sewer commission. So I think the bond vote in my conception here tonight comes somewhat later in March 26, where we know with greater clarity what it's going to be. We have more specific answers that I think goes to credibility. But we start the public engagement sooner and say, why do we have to do this? What are the current estimated costs? Why are we not going to have a bond vote until later? And I think every time we have a conversation or a public outreach, we should repeat who votes on it and why, and who pays for it.
Correct.
Because every year this goes by, there is continued confusion. Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, absolutely it comes up. So, and John, I think you're pointing this out is obviously that if there's, what's the population of Richmond?
4,400, give or take.
4,400. How many rate users are there total? Maybe 1,000
Customer accounts?
Yeah, I don't think there's even.
350
customer accounts, but probably 1,000 people use water.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well,
So-
unless you're a customer of a restaurant, in which case the number goes way up. Or
And
the school.
and there's also the fire protection.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it
But-
becomes a little nuanced, but I think we should be overt about that. Why does the town pay for fire protection, which is a very modest piece of the total water sewer expenses? And separate that from generally who pays versus who votes, because there is ongoing confusion. And why am I voting on it if I don't have to pay for it?
Because you're still obligated to.
Yeah, you were agreeing to use the town's borrowing authority.
Right.
You have to give permission for the town to do that. It's not rocket science,
But
but somehow they confuse it, yeah.
the confusion persists, it seems to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally don't want us to go to a bond vote and then find out it's $20 million.
And I think that's,
And that's what happened to our neighbors in Heinsberg.
Mhm.
They went to a bond vote. It happened just at the end of COVID. And then when they went out to bid it to a contractor, it was twice. And they had to go back and redesign it all.
Yeah, well, sticker shock is a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
look at what happened in
So
West, look what happened in Westford.
yeah,
I think like John is pointing out is that to get to the 30% post-design is very advantageous for us, and that's not going to happen until maybe March of 26.
So two other points. The first is, I think, relatively straightforward, and the second is not. The first is, as we get closer to a bond vote, to illustrate who pays, also talk about impact on ratepayers, like what's the average ratepayer impact for these improvements? And just be overt about it, like this is average and this is the cost per base, like come up with something that tries to make it real for customers. The other thing, and this is specific to wastewater treatment, and it will be familiar to everyone perhaps, if the state is interested in Richmond maintaining wastewater treatment capacity for septage from other towns, does that interest translate into money? And if not, then to what degree are we interested? Perhaps a lesser degree than the state and the other towns.
Mhm.
I mean, I can tell you if we continue dewatering our sludge, that we can do it with 10,000 gallons of septage a day. And that's all we would need to take. That's basically 2 trucks.
Right.
And so presumably the state is interested in more than 2 trucks.
Right. I mean, that's why we averaged today, we had 31,000. You know, there are days that we have 70,000. So.
Can we quickly, and hopefully we'll move this along quick enough here.
We started
Good
early
time.
to make sure we had time, so go ahead.
And maybe Steve or Josh has this answer this question, but John, the 2.5 million that I think it's coming out of Congress that hopefully we'll get, that is earmarked for a specific part of this project?
The dewatering, I believe, it's primarily
Yeah,
for,
septic.
septic receiving.
I believe that's correct. I'm gonna pull it up right now because I don't want to
Yeah, I think it was
speak on it.
Receiving and processing. I think it was receiving and processing
Right.
septic,
It
yeah.
was dewatering process.
And that's what we're talking about right
Yeah.
here is.
Well,
Although I distinguish between the federal government and state
Right,
government.
right.
correct.
The federal government has given money to lots of people because it's expensive and it helps to reduce the cost to the end user. That is a little different than the state wanting us to build capacity for septic hauled from other towns, in my opinion.
Right, no, I agree.
I think, John, I'm not sure what other funding sources there might be out there, but waiting to March 26th would allow us to know for sure whether congressional spending is coming in, maybe any state funding. And then that might help us refine the
Makes sense.
number we have to pay back.
And sorry, one more comment and then I'll stop. So another example of this is at the Regional Planning Commission, there's not surprisingly a lot of conversation about housing and more housing capacity and infrastructure. Many small towns are limited in their ability to support any substantial new investment in housing because the infrastructure to support them does not exist. And
Right.
that is conspicuously water and wastewater.
Right.
There are some conversations that will involve the legislature in the next year or two. If you want small towns to build more housing, and it's probably unreasonable to expect all the taxpayers of a town to invest in water and wastewater to support new housing that somebody else lives in. I think that's an uphill conversation in most towns. Then the state and federal government should contemplate what can you do to create incentives for expanded water and wastewater treatment to support increased housing around the state. And my thesis is Richmond is not unique in that.
Right.
That we're bounded based on this, and it's only a couple of $1 million to expand out, but nobody has that couple of $1 million that they're currently willing to spend.
Right. One thing that's worked actually moderately well for some towns in Vermont is to start calling it workforce housing. Because yes, somebody else is living there, but you need employees just to work at your businesses. Another just tangent, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns just recently voted on its legislative priorities for the coming legislative session. And the Housing and Quality of Life Subcommittee, which I was honored to serve on, had a detailed discussion about how without water and sewer, you can talk all you like about housing, but it ain't happening. And I believe it's the first time in quite some time that pushing for water and sewer as a means of getting housing has been put into the legislative priorities. So I'm hoping that that translates into discussion. I've talked to Jana about it too, and we should be talking to all of our legislators, because without water and sewer in the ground, we're not building housing.
Right.
And even there is a large push in the state for decentralized septic units like they were trying to do in Westford. That system essentially is just a large septic
Yeah.
field and needs to be pumped and taken somewhere.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I mean,
Doesn't really
these
complicate
smaller
it,
towns
so.
that can't afford a plant like Richmond, and need to do decentralized type systems, still need to go somewhere.
Okay, okay.
So
And you still have to sell it to the voters, no matter how big it is.
Yeah.
do we sort of have general consensus? It sounds like that March 26th is sort of the
I
bond
think
vote
so.
that we're looking at. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I've thought that March of this year would be a little too quick. And November of next year, I think it would be the only thing on the ballot. There's not a general election. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think March allows us to get some more information and maybe some more funding.
But I think, again, a lot of interim communication in the meantime. What are we doing? When are we voting on this
Right.
kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Right, we don't want to repeat of the town center, no matter how much outreach they did, there were people who just seemed to get progressively more confused.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so
Maybe we get back to, just ask John this question about what does public outreach entail?
So the largest cost is we're going to build a website for the project with an FAQ section that does exactly what you're talking about, is to try to frame out the typical questions we see and the reasons and the case studies on other communities, other similar communities across New England, of how these projects get paid for and why they're critical to everybody that they advance. We'll also do some we would host a like an open house at the wastewater treatment facility so that people can come see Steve and what he's working with and the equipment where it has a need in a safe way. It's a very a way where they get walked through with an individual from station to station, understand the importance of what a treatment facility does. I think I totally agree with you that we need to start the public outreach process early to get public understanding and get people talking and understanding the project. One thing we have done in other communities, the first step is to set up more of a smaller committee. Folks from the commission here, maybe 2 representatives and Josh and Steve and the Hoyle Tanner team. We talk through funding payback strategies and ways by which the town can show that they can meet the loan payments on the project, and then come back to the commission and talk with the commission, then go to the select board, but really formulate the plan of how that strategy could work to help people understand. If you go right out and don't have enough information about that payback, that's another area that these big projects can fail, is if you're not very clear and transparent about how it's going to be done. Steve, I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah, so my outreach is more, I'm a people person, so I have been reaching out to anybody who wants to come down and see what we do at the water plant. The senior group in Richmond, they came down and took a tour. They were amazed at what we make for effluent and what we're dealing with down there.
How recent was that?
Just before I left, the
Cool.
Wednesday
Okay.
before I left. And then this Wednesday, the 5th grade from Camel's Hump will be coming down. And if you want to get kids involved, I mean, they're gonna come down and we're gonna show them the same thing. And everybody, when we're going out and we're putting in water meters, we're asking, hey, come down, look at the plant, see what it's about.
You know, one thing we could look at doing is pushing it more as like a wedding venue.
Yeah, there you go.
How about baptisms?
Where would you put the bull? Where the riding on bull for the wedding venue?
My son had a mechanical bullet in his leg.
Oh my God.
But I take it as come down, see the plant. You know, all of us take pride in what we put out into the Winooski River. When they saw the effluent that we bring in and you hold it up in a glass and then you show them what we put out and they're like, that's amazing. And it is amazing. And then we show them what we put into the tractor trailer that goes away for solids and they're like, that looks like dirt. And it is
dirt.
It is.
Mhm.
And, you know, so that's how I'm reaching out.
Mhm.
Anybody that wants to come down anytime, we'll give them a tour. And, you know, like I said, we've got the 5th grade coming down for a tour and we've had the seniors and anybody, individuals want to come, I'll give them a tour. Business people, you know.
That kind of thing doesn't need to be done just in support of a bond vote.
No, it doesn't.
Getting ahead of that even is better.
This is Richmond's wastewater plant.
Right, it
And
will be.
really
seen
should
as-
be proud of what we put out there. We're not being dinged on, you know, what we're putting out every month.
Right.
We're putting out a quality, clean product.
Mhm.
99.9% phosphorus removal. I mean, that's unheard of. And, you know, I'm not looking to break this plant that's working. I'm just want to make it so that it can go into the future and still do the job.
Mark,
Well, I just had a thought, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but as an element of public outreach, maybe we should have like an open house afternoon, like once a quarter or something,
Yeah.
just as a fixed time, put it out front porch forum. Put a sign out front, you know, that says open house at wastewater treatment
Yeah.
plant X day.
A lot of
And-
people don't think they
and
can
way
come
ahead.
down.
Refreshments,
Like
yeah.
I said,
Mhm.
come down and take a tour. We'll show you, all of us down there. It is a quality thing that we're doing
Mm.
and we're just looking to make sure we can continue doing that in
Yep.
the future.
Mhm.
let's move along here because we've running through our time here. I'm sorry, John. You got
No, it's great. This
Yeah.
is That was great. Good discussion. It's helpful for me too. And I will say, like, yes, you're doing everything is great right now from the end results of the plant. To keep that going does require the equipment upgrades, the in continued, maintenance and repairs. The other big part of the project is the peak capacity upgrade. So I think what you've seen, Steve, is the challenges during those high flooding events, and exactly what we talked about with resiliency and preparation for the future, and going from a current design peak capacity of 1.15 to a future of 2.3 million gallons per day. That's a significant change for the wastewater plant to be able to handle itself into the future. You do have some room for growth, it looks like, based on the average operating flows versus your permitted capacity. So that's helpful. And those housing discussions are great. Septic grants, great. We do need to advocate at the state level to make sure that continued emphasis is placed on facilities that can do that. There should be a higher level of grants, in my opinion, for septic receiving. Hopefully we get that CDS and that really gets us on our way for this project. But it's super important to the state of Vermont that facilities such as yours continue to support that need across the state. So good stuff. All around great. Let me come back in and keep talking about the pump station project. So one thing we want to make sure everyone's clear on: the current work that's being done, or that has been done at the pump station and will be done on the force main underneath the bridge. That's associated with the FEMA Public Assistance Project. So repairing the insulation around the pipe, because you can't have that exposed and risk of freezing in the winter under the bridge. If that's being done, that's part of the FEMA Public Assistance funding. Those costs that Steve had to have to manage when the pump station was inundated, again, those are part of that program, and that's going to stay on the side. Now we're going to talk a little bit about, like, how do we go forward with that project and preparing for the future and doing an upgrade there. So step one, the planning, and this is the and Josh, I'm not sure if that's on review for the commission to review or push forward for our fee to do the step one planning with the CWSRF. Is that
I didn't think we had the agreement in place yet, did we?
from Lynette?
Yeah, I thought we were still waiting on the
Okay.
final draft of the agreement to present to the commission.
Okay,
Maybe
good.
it's
That
behind on, but if we have that, we'll do it at the next meeting.
I haven't heard from Lynette yet, so let's wait. The first step with any of these is that the CWSRF project engineer, who in this case Lynette Colladon, reviews it and approves, or makes adjustments with Hoyle Tanner as to making sure that the scope and fee are acceptable with the program and fair and responsible to the communities that we're serving. So that's step one there. That's where we're looking at for the pump station. Now, the great news on that is that per the guidance documents of that program, it's capable of getting 100% subsidy, so fully paid for as a loan subsidy, a write-off through the SRF program. That part will define that project. We're going to treat that project as separate of the wastewater treatment facility. The force main upgrades and the improvements at the manhole structures to reduce the amount of flow that can get in, and the pump station itself, maybe relocating it, maybe getting it up and out of that floodplain. Currently, it's within the 100-year floodplain. And as you've seen 2 years in a row now, that is a major problem and something that needs to be addressed. So we're proceeding with the step one planning portion through the SRF program because it's a great benefit to the town to just be paid for right there. And then the step two, final design, and step three, construction, we approximate that cost around $3 million. There's two options to go forward from there. Hopefully, the project qualifies for a FEMA hazard mitigation grant, and we can advance through that program, which is a minimum of 75% paid for through FEMA, potentially up to 100%. The state has been matching projects through the 2023 floods. I'm not sure if they're going to continue that in the 24, but we have already submitted a pre-application with hopes that gets approved to move forward, then we could potentially advance it there. If it doesn't, though, then the SRF program remains a good viable option. It's not a whole lot of subsidy to offset the total cost of the project, but you have the loan interest loan program, which is beneficial to the town being able to break that cost out. So I'll talk on the schedule and we'll open up to questions on the pump station. All right, so well, let me also say with the force main, when we take a look at that, we know that it's too low. It's below the bottom bridge cord and it's at a point where it can get hit by debris. So part of the project will be looking at making an adjustment at the crossing over the Winooski River and what impacts we need to chase out with the force main back to the pump station or back towards the plant. Schedule for that is we're looking to start the PER this October once we get it approved through the town, and then complete it in April of 2025. That again ties well with the overall storyline of the wastewater treatment facility. We want to talk about both of these together when we do the bond vote, which it sounds like March of 2026 would be where we're targeting. Then both of these should be on that same bond vote. But by then, hopefully, we'll find out whether or not how much is going to be offset by other federal grant programs, hopefully FEMA or more through the SRF. And then we'll look to start final design in May and complete it. We'll look at the schedule a little bit later, just to make sure that it coordinates with, depending on the funding program. They have different requirements and steps, but it'll be a similar track of construction in 2027 approximately. So before I go into the influent pump, which should be fast, so if you have any questions here on the Bridge Street pump station and force main work.
Hear you correct? You said there was an estimate of about 3 million to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I didn't, it's not typed in on this one. I have it on my side.
Okay.
3 million and no construction until 2026.
27 because you would do it after the bond vote, potentially 2026, depending on a few things that could happen in between. It could start earlier if the right funding program lines up with it.
Bart? Does this include flood mitigation at the well itself?
No, none of this talks about water yet.
Okay.
Yeah, this is all on the wastewater system.
Okay.
And we'll probably have that agreement with the engineer for next meeting. We're still waiting for something back from the state, like you were saying. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, all I'm gonna say is I'm not waiting to do something to protect us. I think we agreed that the $5,000 to raise the controls is good. And then I'm looking into finding some better way of watertight sealing the manhole itself. If we can stop the water from getting in, then we're good to go. What failed this last flood was a plastic check valve on the sub pump. That is now gone, and a real brass check valve is in its place. Should not fail. It's physically impossible to fail backwards like the plastic one did. But also there's the seal around the top of the manhole that needs to be adjusted. I think if we can do those two things, we can make it to without having a big issue from, the next 4 years.
For the interim, I mean,
Yeah.
I just had this vision of like the hatch on a submarine. Like
Something,
it doesn't let water in.
right.
So
But-
something
And
in that
really,
direction.
all this is a circular steel with a rubber on it, and the rubber doesn't stay on anymore. And so it falls off and it doesn't connect all the way around. But I think there's a better type of seal that we can find to, even if we have to do some welding around the cover to make it work better, to make it more watertight. Because in the 2023 flood, it did not fill all the way up like it did this time. So, the check valve worked, but it was just a plastic cheap one That's gone, that's been replaced. We've put a sub pump in that was, the one that was in there was a homeowner's type sub pump. And the one that's in there now works even if it's submerged.
Good.
And is what originally was in the design for the pump station from 1970.
Steve, is that lid bolted down or is it just? held
It
up by
has
weight?
4 latches that squeeze it
The
down,
dogs.
but it needs some better type of seal.
Mhm.
And I think if I've reached out to some people to talk about what we can do better. Plus, we have
Well, I was thinking, I mean, if we have a new gasket, it'll stay put. I mean, the gasket. will and the lid-
I think it needs a different style of gasket, something that actually.
Well, let's bring this up a little bit
Yeah.
later. Let's finish up with this and then. So I'm sorry. So John, yeah, go ahead with item number 3, please. Influent
Yeah,
pumper.
and Steve, if while our team's going through the design, like that's certainly something we could work with you on, like a step 1 or something to be done maybe next spring when we identify the right parts for you to get that work done. So definitely stay in touch with Eric Doe and myself and Kirsten.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. And that study will also look at several alternatives, like one alternative being to remain in place. There may be a base level of minimal cost to the pump station itself, up to something staying in that general vicinity, but being a much more flood resilient structure, maybe raised up, if that's feasible within the floodplain, or fully relocated out of that location to a different location is the. So that's that scope of work is going to look at several alternatives on the pump station itself of what the best long-term solution for Richmond is. But yeah.
I'm just looking for a short-term solution to get us through the next several years until the next.
Floods, yeah.
Yeah, good points. Okay, so then this is pretty simple. The influent pump replacement. The town has currently funded Hoyle Tanner to do the design of the replacement and the RFP documents for that. I believe it's in for review with Steve and Josh right now to get approval, and we're looking to go out, I think, October 15th. If that's all, everything goes according to plan, and we'll post it, and it's a 2-week bid period. So the construction dollar value is estimated at $100,000. And we would start on construction in November and completion in December. $26,000 also includes Hoyle Tanner's support during the construction phase services.
Yeah.
So that influent pump 2, if you all recall, maybe Kirsten talked about it last time about why it's so critical. It's very much like a high risk for the plant right now. And Steve's here, so he can talk more about it, but you're down a whole pump. One's completely not usable, and then the other was really installed as a temporary pump for all of the influent that comes into the plant. So it's a high risk situation that needs to have that redundancy built in with a new pump put in place.
They're like a Christmas present, December.
Can't happen too soon.
Right. All right,
Okay.
yeah, thanks, John.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Yeah, great to have the time. Good to see you all again. If you want, I can stick on a little longer. I can hop off here. Josh, you have anything else that you think could come up?
No, I think we're on to a few other items now, but thank you
Yeah,
very
I
much for
mean-
making the time tonight and walking through this. I think it was helpful.
It was nice to get the 3 distinct
Yeah.
programs laid out, so everybody knows.
And to
what-
have a good idea vis-a-vis the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really am thankful for this feedback on the bond vote, because I think that helps us plan a little bit. So very good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, John.
Excellent. Great to see you all. Bye.
Thanks.
All right, we're good. We can put on the, make sure that we continue to put on the agendas to talk about the manhole cover.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not gonna wait 3 years to solve this problem.
Right.
We need to protect ourselves now.
Yeah.
And if we can spend 5,000 to put the controls up in the air, then I think that's 5,000 well spent.
Absolutely.
And then if we can spend a couple thousand or 5,000, get the pump station so we know it will keep water out.
Mhm.
You know, maybe those two things get done and we don't have a flood for. If we don't do them, we know we're gonna be in the same boat as we are. And I hate dumping money in to, you know,
Keep repairing the
Yeah.
same thing. Yeah.
you
No,
know. I understand that the bridge crossing, the best thing we can do is completely tuck the sewer line up like the water line is,
right.
because it's well protected and doesn't get hit. You know, that has to be done. But I think there are some things that we can do to get our pump station safe. And going forward that we need to do.
Yeah, those are fairly straightforward solutions to minimize.
I mean, isn't it insanity if you continue to do the same thing and expect results?
Yeah, I think we talked about that at either the last meeting or the meeting prior to that, about the 5,000, and you're working
Yeah, so
with.
I've
some
already
estimates,
asked Dan Pratt to put us on the schedule and do the work. And Tyler has said that the zoning issues are not an issue now. He's come to terms with it, but it needs to be done.
That leads us into the next one, the approval of a vendor for repair of sewer line under the bridge.
Yeah, so we went out for a full RFP process on this, where we contacted a number of vendors that we knew did this type of work and might be interested in the work. Unfortunately, we only got one bid. It was from All Seasons Excavating. The good news is that they did the repair in December, in
Yeah.
January, so they know what they're doing. They know what they're getting into. It's unfortunate though, we only had one, and they did good work. It's too bad we only had the one bid, because the bid is at $82,000. In December, I think it was closer to 50,000, maybe 54. But it was
Yeah,
My
60%.
sneaking suspicion was that 21,000 of the repair in December was staging. My sneaking suspicion is that they're looking at putting staging all the way across, because all of the majority of the hangers are
Right.
bent all the way across. And I think that's
I
from
think
the
you're right.
increase. I haven't been able to get in contact with them. I know they talked with Duncan yesterday, or either today or Friday. But I haven't been able to reach out and say, hey, explain this to me. Why is it? So I apologize that I haven't gotten in contact with them, but
Well, it has to be done.
it does have to be done. I don't want
And-
to leave it and find out that we've got a frozen sewer line across. And then, you know, everybody on the, you know, then we're stuck pumping and bringing across.
Well, if you're able to get the cost down by talking to them, that's great. But the motion we have in the packet is cost not to exceed. So,
Yeah,
I think Bart had a question, or
you know,
Well, my only comment is if we look at the bid form, it's lump sum, so we really didn't ask for the level of detail, line item.
Right.
So
I
it's sort
wanted
of
to reach out to them.
still worth doing,
Yeah,
but I just point out that's why we have what we have.
would somebody like to make a motion?
Just one question, Morgan. I assume payment of that, it's coming from FEMA? Then it's
Well,
gonna be.
it will come out of our funds first.
Yeah,
And
first.
then
Couple of
some
years later.
FEMA should reimburse 75% as they do, and then we get a matching 17.5% from the state.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, the town should really only be paying 7.5% of this, but it could take a year to get paid back.
That's what I was wondering,
So,
yeah. It is what it is.
and the 52,000 that we paid in December wasn't covered under FEMA because that event.
no, part of it, so part of it was, we got it.
Documented that the hangers were bent.
Yeah, so I think we got like $20,000 or $30,000 back. I forget the exact number. So we did get some,
Some,
not all.
But I mean, essentially, the damage that was done in December was not
Was not a
covered
FEMA event,
because
yeah.
it wasn't a FEMA event.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion if you want. I move to hire All Season Excavating to repair the sewer line under the Bridge Street Bridge that was damaged by the July 2024 flooding. The cost not to exceed 82.
Is Bart, I will second that.
This is Aaron. I'll second.
Mhm.
And you're breaking up pretty bad. I think you seconded.
Consider. it
Yeah, I was
second.
just trying to second it. Sorry.
There you go.
All right, we'll accept your second.
Okay.
Discussion, any further discussion? Aaron, questions, discussion?
No.
Thank you, Josh.
Okay, no further discussion, calling for a vote to approve the excavation or repairs for the sewer line for 82,000.
Just to protect.
Lisa, aye.
Bard, aye?
J.I.
Morgan, I.
Aaron, I.
Okay, unanimous vote.
I.
Thank you.
You can only vote once.
Okay, so, all right, motion passes then. Okay, next up,
Flood recovery expenses.
who gets to cover
I
those?
got a quick summary if you want me to do
For
that,
what?
for flood recovery
Oh.
expenses, so.
Yeah, well,
I can just give you the quick sort of numbers and then I can go back to texting on the projector. So the previous estimate we had of $115,000 for wastewater assumed a cost of $50,000 for repair of the sewer line and $10,000 for fill Laramie, including $6,000 for new motors. Those bills have come in at $82,000 for the sewer lines we just talked about, and $15,640 for fill Laramie, and $8,066 for the motors. That pushes the total up to $155,000. So about $40,000 more than we had originally estimated. So what that does is the projected year-end FY25 balance of unrestricted funds in wastewater drops to $112,000, which is $20,000 below the 132, which would be 15% of the budget. So we're dropping below that guidance of 15%, but you keep that there in the event of an emergency too. And hopefully we'll start to get paid back for some of these. Well, we'll see how FEMA does with funding, but the only thing I can say positive on that is we're gonna have, at least to start, the same project manager from FEMA as we're currently working with, and he's been great. He's been really good working with Duncan and with Pete and with Steve on the projects from FY23. So there's some procedural things that need to happen still for the 24 flood, but hopefully we can kind of keep that process moving a little bit quicker. Knock on wood that we are allowed to keep our current project manager. So I don't know if you want to provide more details
No,
about
I
the
mean,
cost, but that's the big numbers.
it's just, the nature of the beast that the prices are coming in, even higher than I would have anticipated.
We heard from John earlier, didn't we, 40% on some stuff?
Yeah,
Oh,
and it's not only the inflation, it's the wait time too, to get this stuff.
Well, the waiting is the hardest part.
Okay. On to D perhaps.
Okay, thank you. Next up, consideration approval of a policy and amendment of current policy, which would limit each structure to only one capital T town water meter.
I don't think there's any discussion needed.
Well,
for it.
I do want to
Yeah,
just review the
okay.
policies because I honestly didn't have a chance to run them by Steve because he was out. And over the weekend, it dawned on me too, one thing, let me pull up the policies here. I'm gonna make sure I've got them that we can walk through. And just give me 1 second. Then we might need to change some of this because of the way we talked about structures. So the first one is, nope, that's not the right one. And that's not the right one. I went to the wrong. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Okay, so the first one was amending a current policy we have in place. So I took a stab at trying to wordsmith this based on what we had for feedback last time. But the thing I started thinking about, Steve and Commission, was as we talk about 1 meter per structure, I think we might need to add something in here unless that structure has multiple water lines headed to it. Because I started to think about Stone Corral, because they were talking about their allocation last week. Well, they've got the brewery, the restaurant, the auto shop that I think all have meters, and I think they all have laterals. No?
Stone Corral, Heidi has one, she has one line in,
Okay,
and then it splits. One goes to Stone Corral to the restaurant and the brewery. And one
Oh.
is for her, the
auto shop.
the auto shop.
But how many meters do we have on that?
There are 2 meters in that structure.
So one for the brewery and restaurant and one for the auto
Yep.
shop. Okay. So that one would be, that would actually fall under, it's an existing condition and we're not gonna change it.
Right.
So maybe it's,
I'm just gonna observe there, this is where we talked about like compelling people to change their current systems
Mm.
is uphill, as opposed to if they were coming to us today, we'd say 1 meter. Or you can do separate lines with separate meters.
Right.
That's slightly different from how I read both of these amendments, which talk about 1 meter per structure, and it seems to be silent on the possibility of 2 lines, 2 meters into the same structure.
okay,
And it would seem to me we'd want to allow that as long as they're separate systems.
Correct.
You can turn off this system, only they are affected. You turn off that system, only they are affected. But they are truly separate and distinct.
Fair point. So we use the term curb stop, is that what you call a
So-
valve?
So, yeah, off of our water main, the big, large mains, we tee off and we go to a curb stop, which is those steel pipes that you see sticking up out of the ground, or they're slightly buried. And we can stick a key in and actually shut the water off for the structure outside, independent of anything going on inside.
Mm.
You know, if there is a house freezes or something, that's where they're gonna want, the town, they're gonna want us really to shut it off at the curb stop. Where you have 2 meters inside and only 1 curb stop, you could have potentially 1 meter flooding and the other is fine and could operate, but you gotta shut them both off. So,
And what your reference to, Bart, is really comes back to the curb stop, if I understand this.
Yeah, so I'm thinking curb stop with a service line to a set of plumbing, different curb stop,
Yeah.
different service line, different set of plumbing.
if,
In the case of Man and Machine and Stone Corral, if they were entirely separate systems with separate meters, there could be 2 in the same building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if the plumbing inside is commingled or,
Right.
you
Make no
know,
sense
runs
to have
into each
separate
other,
meter.
it's still got, and it's off 1 curb stop.
Yeah.
Either one of those situations, 1 curb stop, 1 shut off means 1 meter. And even if they tried to do 2 meters, but they fed each other, we wouldn't allow that either.
right,
so I think I can, that's a good point, I can make some
I think
changes
we
to
don't,
this.
I think your point is, we don't wanna eliminate a customer who would like to divide a house
Yeah,
Right.
from being able to put 2 separate meters in.
If they're
From the
willing
curb
to pay
stop.
for
They're
that.
willing to do this,
Yeah.
the extra due diligence.
Yeah,
of
that's
going
my
back.
point.
Right,
all right,
it's a possibility, you
Yeah.
can do it, but it's a little more than just putting a D in.
And it's more likely a new construction or
Right.
substantial reconstruction. I think of also the circumstances with the potential future of ADUs within the system.
Yeah.
There's gonna be separate
Good point,
dwelling
Yeah.
next to
Mm.
an existing dwelling.
So-
If somebody spends all the money putting the ADU in that
We-
neighborhood, they might wanna just say, oh, it's a new service line also.
We already had that come up when, up on Main, they put in a second dwelling behind the first. And I had quite a discussion and a long argument saying that second dwelling needs a curb stop and a separate sewer line, not connected to the first dwelling. It essentially, they are separate residents. And he agreed finally. But it took some coercing to get him there.
Well, and it wasn't a small ADU, it's a full home.
Yeah, but I mean, he really was looking to dump his sewer from the second home into the sewer for the first home. And I'm like, first of all, camera the first home sewer and verify that you've already subdivided that into a duplex. And now you're gonna add another house to that sewer line. And what he did, he cameraed it and he found out that the sewer line was crushed. So he ended up having to change that sewer line and put a separate connection for the new home in. Which is what should happen, and that's why, I fought there, and one curb stop, one dwelling, 1 meter. And that's what I think we need to do going
Yeah, we
forward.
can rewrite those to talk about, if you have 2 lines, we can get, yeah.
But Bart's point of, we're not limiting you if you wanna
If you
do
want to
it.
put the line in, yep,
Right.
we can do that. I just want to be mindful of time.
Yeah.
We've got a few more things to get
So
to.
it seems like 2 tweaks.
Yeah.
One is to make sure that it covers the idea that you could have 2 different lines, 2 different systems in the same building. And so also be clear that you can't add 2 buildings to one line.
Right.
And I read it quickly,
asking
but
for
I
trouble,
don't
yeah.
remember seeing that.
Okay,
It's a prohibition and the other is an allowance that's
Right.
not fully captured, I think.
we can do that.
Great.
Anything not forbidden is compulsory.
Update on installation of water meters.
I was not around, so I didn't require the guys to be continuing to, they've installed a few more and Brad today got a bunch of more, appointments. We had our first refusal. I had a customer contact us and they want to be the last customer hooked up. They do not want the radio frequencies causing cancer.
Sorry.
So I tentatively have signed them up for the very last meter. I mean, what else? I told them that it's coming, we're doing it. And I said, I'll sign you up, I'll put you down right now. I'm gonna contact you as soon as we get within 10 meters of being done. You're gonna have to be the, if that's what you want. But-
Maybe we can do a little research and I could come up with showing that if you're sticking a smartphone to your ear, that's more damaging than.
My
The
thought
amount of
was the
ionizing
person
radiation
probably
from
doesn't
either
have a
is minimal.
smartphone. So,
Okay, thank you.
I very nicely told them that, we'll put you on as the last meter.
All right,
Well, you're 25% the way through, so. Update on water bills, there was a little.
yeah, so in the switch over to Zenner, we still need some training to be done, to make sure that we know how to generate the bills and send them out. And then there's also a field in Nemrick that, we need to make some adjustments to. It usually had the parcel ID on that. Nemrick or, Zenner took over a few fields because they needed it for their system. So we lost that field and we're working on getting that back so that when you get your bill, it'll say your parcel ID on it. We'll know which parcel it is because some people have multiple bills that come to them. So we're working on getting that. So typically we try to mail these 10 days after the billing cycle ends, which would be October 10th. But statutorily, we have until 30 days prior to the bill is due, and the bill's not due till December 31st. So there's going to be a slight delay as we work through these issues and then we'll get the proper bills out.
The meter reads have been done, they're done. It took, I think Brad said it took them 2 days to do all of them. It took them, for the 110 meters that we have on Zenner, it took 5 minutes.
And it's just the scheduling of trying to get the training and the final way for Connie to set up the bills has been challenging to get time on her schedule that matches with Zenner and Nemrick, but we're working on it.
Mark,
We sometimes talk about communicating with customers via stuffer in the bill being mailed out, so that's not gonna work in this case.
Right.
Maybe front porch forum, just a
Yeah.
freestanding note, like it'll get some level of word out,
Yeah,
or even our website that says
Yep.
slight delay.
Yeah,
Kind of
we
what
could
you
do
said.
that and put that on.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right,
But the meter reads are all done.
That's great.
I mean, that's.
The data's there.
and it went pretty easy, it sounds like with
It's
the,
getting it through the NEMRIC system.
it's,
Uh,
once it's set up, I think it's gonna be awesome. It's just,
It
a little bit of
basically,
challenge getting it
6
set up.
days, I mean, we did the training for the billing cycle at the plant. And basically, it's 6 days before the end of the billing cycle, you export your NEMRICs into your Zenner system. And in the 6 days, Zenner's, all the data gets put in. And it's basically, you just export it back into Nemrick's and your bills are done.
All right,
All right.
water data.
And-
Pretty
I didn't
good.
even see it because I wasn't here, so.
Well, you guys did,
I
you
think
guys
it's been
did good. It's another perfect
Yeah.
week.
I think it's been really good. We were a little low on our fluoride, but we've taken that into consideration.
Well, you
Um,
weren't low on the fluoride. I think
Well-
that your tests come
Our
back
tests
within
are,
range. It's
but-
just that when they send the same sample out to get tested by the state, it's consistently lower. So Brad told me is you guys are gonna try to keep this closer to a 7 or 8 so that we're always at a 0.6 from the state.
Yeah,
And you just had your testing equipment calibrated
correct.
and it still is differing from the
The
state.
state is wrong.
I would guess.
So let me give you
But you might, you've tried to troubleshoot this a number of ways.
Yeah, so I have gotten the calibration data from when we just had all of our instruments calibrated. And it does state that our fluoride meter is 0.02 off from perfect calibration. And it does suggest that we might want to invest in a new one.
How much is one?
So, I haven't even priced them. I think they're like $1,000, so.
It's not too bad.
But
But 0.02, I mean, these are off by like
It's
0.4 in some cases. If it
yeah.
was 0.02,
as a
that
percentage
wouldn't
of
be
accuracy.
that.
But
pretty
it
high.
all adds up. I mean, it does add up.
Maybe buy the new one for $1,000 and see if we're more matching with them, $1,000.
But I
Should we ask how old theirs is?
The
state.
They use well,
Do
we're
they
not
titrate?
using, so. When we use the state, we are way off.
Oh,
And
these
they
are
use
Endyne,
They
sorry.
use a completely different
Method.
method.
Hmm.
When we use Endyne, it is a lot closer to ours. So the states like the fluoride people. Are like, we don't care if you use Endyne or the state, they're both doing the test, so use whichever. So we use Endyne and it is closer. We are keeping our fluoride at a little higher number right now, it's at a 0.8. And we're expecting our October numbers to be back up into that sweet spot of a 7.
Okay, okay, good, thank you. Update on removal of fallen and dead trees. The saga goes
The
on.
never-ending tree removal saga. So we did get about 3 different quotes on this. The best quote that we had was from Acer for removal of the downed trees. Total cost is $5,850. We're gonna split that 80% between the town and 20% to the Bressers, because we had some trees that fell onto the Bressers property. There were some trees that were on the Bressers property that fell. So doing it all at once, they'll take care of the Bressers trees, the town's trees, and the trees that Steve was concerned about that are hanging. There's a dead tree that didn't fall over, and there's another tree that is dead and sort of hanging over too close to the controls. So we'll get all of that out of there. Surprisingly, all these tree companies are booked up pretty well. They're not going to be here till the end of November, but they will. I mean, right now there is land there. There's not a structure near them. They're falling away from.
And we can't just use
facility.
dynamite.
Well, I would advise against that. We might have a larger bill for sewer line replacement if we use dynamite.
Wait for another flood, they'll watch the way.
They could just flow down the river, but let's hope we don't have
And
another
they're
one.
already on the low side of the sewer lines.
Okay.
So we got that.
Are you removing them, Josh? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, we're gonna get them out of there. It's just gonna take a little bit of time.
And we're not gonna try to build a conference table out of it.
Not with those trees. I don't think that there's any good wood over there. They're pretty old. Yeah, like cottonwoods and things like that. I think. I don't know much about trees, but no one said, oh, I would do the best thing with that.
Yeah, right.
And John Lynn would usually stop by and tell me that, or Jack.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, superintendent's report.
So we're, the big thing is this week, Champlin is going to start with installation of the mission system for the water system. I think Thursday is when they're gonna start. We're ramping back up to do meters installs again. And we're working on cleaning out the aeration tank. trying to get that cleaned out before winter is a monumental job. We are trying to do it as cheaply as we can. I really hate to look at $20,000 for removal. But as it gets closer to winter, we're gonna maybe have to use some. We have budgeted 15,000 for cleaning of other tanks. And I might forego cleaning them and use the money to clean this one out. Both Brad and I agree that the way the plant runs with a clean and fresh aeration tank is 100% different from the way it was running. It runs much better. We have a lot less grease throughout the whole plant. And our effluent looks really, really good. Our microbiology is super. So what we really, Brad and I have planned on doing is what the plant was originally intended to do. Every 6 months, you switch from one to the other. And then we just, like Brad said, we probably can just take the fire hose and clean the bottom out, not leaving it for 15 years. So
You're aging it.
yeah, so once we get this cleaned out, we'll fill the tank back up this year with effluent. And the plan is first thing in the spring, we will drain it. Basically just give it a wash down and we'll switch back to that one. And we'll just basically drain the other one and clean it. And we'll go back to a every 6 months system. And hopefully the plant, the way it's been running, I mean, both Brad and I agree, it is unbelievable the difference in the microbiology and everything that we see. We're seeing things that we've never seen before that are good microbiology that people are telling us, wow, you have that? We haven't seen them, you know.
Well, that's great compared to when we killed all our microbiology.
Well, yeah. So
Okay.
we're not seeing those declines in the DO and stuff because the microbiology is healthy and we're trying to keep it down. That being said, the other project that we want to get accomplished before winter, and I'm really getting on right now, is the clarifier. We still have that clarifier that was down because the shaft was bad. What I have decided and did is Giro's have completely made us a new shaft. We're going with steel. It was in there since the plant was built. It's the original one, so it's lasted this long. We've changed the fabricated bearings. They machined them out and we put brass bearings in there. And we're gonna make them greasable from the surface.
Cool.
So you don't have to
Just-
drain the tank
yeah.
or grease them. And we're gonna put that in. They're supposed to have that project all done so we can start installation of that next week. And get that clarifier back online to run for the winter, because that is the one that's closest to the building and doesn't freeze as much. So those two little projects we're trying to get done. We did the major project of changing the auger in the incline screw in the dewatering. That has made a ton of difference out there. We don't hear any noises. It's not banging around. We haven't seen any problems with it. It was a week of being down that I didn't really want to do, but I think it paid off in the long run.
Okay, good. Last, thank you, Steve. Last is the engineer inspection of the water.
We got them lined up to come on October 16th. It sounds like they're gonna spend a good amount of time here in Stephanie Tank.
And we will have, this week, we'll have all around the tank weed whacked, so they'll have good observation around and looking and be able to see everything that's up there, so.
And they were doing external.
They are doing external. I also found out this week that Simon's operation, they have a remote, our control camera that we could use, borrow. I think
We also have all the video from.
we
when it
have
was
all the
made,
video, but
so.
we Nate offered it.
Okay.
If it was something
needed
that they wanted, And we could do also is use their RV.
Well, it seems like at a minimum, the video of the internal inspection is relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get that to them and but I'm happy that we have a date on the calendar for them to come.
Items for next meeting?
I've got sewer line follow-up, policy follow-up, water meter follow-up, water billing follow-up, and follow-up on crack inspection.
Did they need to make a motion on that water billing or?
No, I think we just need to let them know they were aware, we'll tell, yeah, no, we don't need a motion. Just so the commission knew that when we post on front porch forum, they're not like, we didn't know this was happening.
Yeah,
Good, all right.
And also a good way to inform the public. but-
I have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, calling for vote.
I assume I'm.
J I.
Aye.
Morgan, I.
Art, aye.
Motion.
Aaron, I.
Aaron, I. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Aaron.
Aaron. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Marty.